like she said, I am Kevin McDarris. I am the application engineer for SOLIDWORKS Electrical with Modern Tech. Today I'm just going to go over some of the tools we can use to customize reports within SOLIDWORKS Electrical. So here's a little roadmap of what we're going to cover today. So I'm just going to kind of touch on the configurations we can set up for our reports, and we'll jump into one of those reports and just add a column to it. Then we'll look at some of the parameters we can use to sort and break and organize the results on our reports. Then we'll look at using some of the formulas to modify the results we're getting. And then finally, we'll take a look at the SQL editor and how you can use that to dive in deeper and add columns to reports that weren't previously available. So to start off with, let's take a look at a configuration for our reports. So a little background here. Now, most of you, if you're already using SOLIDWORKS Electrical, you're familiar with coming into our reports and then saying, let's add one to our project. And you get this list typically that pops up of reports that are available. But most people don't really pay attention to what this means over here on the right-hand side, our type. It's saying application. Well, what's going on in the background is we do have a configuration setup we can take care of for our reports. That is found under your Project tab under Configurations down to Report. So this management screen here is showing me two different things. On the right-hand side are all the reports that are available on the application level, which means these reports are accessible by any project across the system. On the right-hand side, we have reports that are available just to that specific project. So why would you want something just for that project and not just available to anybody? Well, maybe you're sitting there modifying a report, testing it out. You don't want this to be go live just yet. So one thing you can do when you start getting into modifying these reports is come to your application side and simply pick one and make a duplicate of it. That way you have something, you're not messing up your master template. So I've already created a duplicate here for my bill of materials. So I also want one here for my wiring type, which I've already got right above it. So why don't I just go in and start modifying these? Well, I want to put them on the project side for one main reason. Like I said, I don't want anyone else seeing these reports just yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them from my application level. I'm just going to say let's add it to the project. That way, as I start making changes and using this, no one else is going to see these and be able to modify them as I'm in there. But you also notice the color is showing me here in green. That's just a quick visual of, hey, this is on the project level. Well, anything in this brown reddish color is across the board or application level. So if I accept these changes and come back out and look now in my reports, I'm going to add those to my project. And now you can see it shows over here it's a project level and not an application level. So I know that right off the bat by looking at it, no one else will be able to use these as I'm trying to test them out. So I'm going to go ahead and say let's use these in our report, in our project. So I'm just going to do one for a list of wires and one for a bill of material. And we'll start modifying some of these and seeing how we can get these looking good. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and generate a drawing and add them to our documentation. So I come back out and look at it. I do have my list of wires and my bill of materials. Nothing fancy, just a generic list. So, recap on that one is essentially your reports are stored either across the board for every project, or you can take a report and make it just on the project level. So what happens when we want to go in and start modifying these? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and just add a column to one of these reports. And that's going to be on our list of wires here. This is kind of boring. It doesn't really show much. This is really my to and from list. So I'm going to go in and see I have my wire numbers and gauge. I want to show a wire color also, which is not on this current report. So to do that, we do not go back to our configurations. That's just for your overall different projects reports. Here you go into the report itself, and let's say I'm modifying this list of wires. I'm going to go into its properties. Now, since I am dealing with what I am showing on the actual report when it's generated a drawing, I want to come in and look at our columns here. Now, you can override what this text is for these columns. Like in this case, I don't like it saying origin and destination. I like these being a to and from list. So I'm going to say instead of origin destination, I'm going to overwrite it. And I'll do the same thing for my gauge here. But the main thing I want to do here is I want to add a new column. So this is what this report is generated right now. I want to tell it, let's add one for our wire color. To do that is very easy. You just come up to the columns up here and right-click. And it brings up a list of columns that are available. Now in the background, an SQL query has been written that has pulled in all these different columns. And right now, we just have them unchecked or checked, depending on which ones we want to show. So in here, I'm just going to find my color code, put a check mark there, come back out, and now it shows I have a color code listed. But I also don't like the order this is in. So I can rearrange these real simple. Just have to drag and drop these. So I might want to show my wire number first, followed by my color code, to, then from, and then my gauge and length. Once you've got everything laid out the way you like it, it's always a good idea to come to your layout tab to make sure you're not exceeding the title block by adding these new columns, which I look good here. So I'm going to apply it, and then come back out and update my report, and let's regenerate our drawings. So now when I come and look at our documentation, it should now have my color code in there with my new titles and the way it's organized. So you can see that just by going in there and using those tools in the report editor, it's very easy to go in and add stuff you want to show that's not already there, and you can organize things the way you want. So now let's take a look at sorting and organizing the results inside that report. So what I don't like so far on this one is I put my first column to be my wire number. You see this not in any sort of order here. I want to put this in order of, numerically increasing here. So to do that, it's always going to be back going to your reports and properties to edit it. So this time I don't want to deal with the columns. I want to go to my sort and break tab. So right now, on the right-hand side is showing how I am organizing and sorting and breaking in this report. I have nothing shown right now. On the left is the parameters I can use to organize. So if I want to organize this based on my wire number, I just need to come over and find a parameter for my wire number, which is right here conveniently in the very top, and say, let's sort that on our wire tag number. I'll hit apply, close, come back out, and update. And you see that all of a sudden, now it shows my results in ascending order. Now I can take one thing a step farther here. Now I don't want to go ahead and report, do the drawing just yet, because I want to make one more change. Now each one of those wires is using a different wire type. So maybe I want to organize my report and put a break in there showing, all right, so every wire of this type, here's the wire number that goes with it, and then show the next category. And let's look at the layout just to see how this is looking so far. Maybe move it a little bit bigger. So it's going to show my wire number in the correct order like we saw on the main page. If I add a sort and break option here, I'm going to break it on the wire type. So I need to find that parameter next. It should be line style listed somewhere. Here it is. Let's add that as a parameter. But I also want to put a check mark in here to say, all right, every time there's a new wire type, let's break it and start a new table. You see it adds secondary tables up here. So let's see how that looks like now. Let's apply it and close and update, and finally generate our drawings for it. So we kind of see how it's organized now. I can see that it is giving me the different wire types in here and then breaking it down into the different numbers. So you can see that by using this sort and break option, I have control over how I'm going to customize my overall report and organize my results into ways I want them to look. Next up, let's take a look at applying some formulas to our different columns. So what does this mean? If I look back now at my reports here for each wire type, I can see that I have a length in here. And that length is being shown in this first case as 109.19 inches. Well, this is a cut sheet I'm giving to somebody. This 0.19 inches is going to get ignored. No one's going to go in there and sit there and try to measure that fine of a cut. So I want to come in there and apply a formula to this and say, well, don't take the length as it's given to us. Let's round it up to the next quarter inch. So I'm going to do this in a similar method. You always go back into your reports and its properties. Now this time, if I look at my columns, let me get this a little bit bigger here. I can see that, I have my columns laid out the way I want, like we did earlier. I have the headers laid out the way I want. But underneath there's content. So what this content means, let's look at our line number, for example, here. That what I want to display here is actually shown by a formula. So in the case of the wire number, it's just saying the formula for this is, let's go out into the database, find this wire tag attribute, and display it for every value we need. That's pretty simple right here. Well, in the case of our length, it's a little bit more complex. It's actually saying, let's pull in our length. In this case, it always comes in as millimeters. Let's do a conversion into inches, and then let's display it out to the second decimal spot. I'm not going to get too deep into what this SQL code gets into. That's what a whole different topic here. I want to modify this formula. So to modify a formula, you just click on this little FX button right next to it. And it is showing you right off the bat some of the formulas you may have used in the past. I'm sorry, right here is previous formulas. This was just showing you what you have currently assigned. You can also come in and apply some different variables. And I'll get back to this in a different section. But for our formula right here, I already have a formula I have come up with. So I'm just going to copy and paste it into here, which is essentially truncating this number and then rounding it up to the next quarter inch. And hit OK to apply it. And one thing to note while I'm here is I have this little option down here. I can sum the content of merged cells. I'll explain what that means in just a minute. So I'm going to hit OK. And now if I come back out and apply it, close and update, you'll see that this length over here, as soon as I hit update, should now go to the next quarter inch. And it looks like I am good to go. So what does that sum mean? When I come back in here, I see that I have the option just on this column, where I could turn it on and off. If I want to take that overall length and add up that column inside that table, I can do that just by coming here and put a check mark right there. So now every length for that different wire type, I get a total overall value. So I can say, all right, I maybe need 18 inches for this wire, 18 inches for this other wire, and I need a total of 36 of this wire type to be ordered or cut off the roll. So once I've got that check marked, I always come down and hit apply, update. This time I don't really see any lengths generated here because that's going to show on my documentation, my report drawing. So let's generate a drawing for it again. Come back out and look at my reports now. I can see that I have a new number for my length. I don't have that 0.19 anymore. It did round up. And in the case of this third table, I've got individual wire lengths, and I'm getting a total overall length of how much I need of that wire. So you can see that by applying these, you can have the flexibility you need to go in there and modify the results to show them the way you need them to look. And finally, let's look at using the SQL editor to make some changes. This is a little bit more advanced. So I come in and look at my report again. I'm going to look at a different report this time. I have my bill of materials. It's organized to break on the manufacturer, and then it's showing the manufacturer's part number, description, where it's used, quantity. Well, I also have some more information on each one of these parts. That's what this drawing is here for. It's just a simple harness, but if I look at one of these connectors, I can see for each part, the data card is saying, all right, here's the part number, here's the manufacturer. But I've also got to find here who is it being ordered from, the supplier name, and what is their part number. Maybe I want to show that on the report itself. So let's go in and try to add that. Come back into our reports, and this time let's look at our bill of materials and its properties. So if I try to do this like I did my wire color earlier, I'm going to think, okay, I want to come into my columns and right-click, and then come in here. I see I already have my manufacturer, my part number. Let's look for the supplier. Well, I can see that's not in here. There's a reason for that. The SQL query that is written to generate this report never actually referenced the supplier or the supplier stock number in the database. So I could try adding this column manually. That's what this little option right here is. You notice it's grayed out right now. That's because I need to activate my expert mode. And this is going to open up a screen showing the actual query that was written. I don't care about modifying this just yet. I'm going to come back out to my columns. And now you can see this is available. So if I click it, this says, okay, let's add a new column that's available. So I'm going to give it a description of supplier. And now there's no formula here, so I'm going to come in and say, all right, let's just go find that variable. So I don't have any predefined formulas I can use, no recent ones that apply in this case. So I'm going to look at the variables I can find. All right, there's my manufacturer, there's my part numbers. Let's find our supplier in here. Let's scroll down. See, well, it's not available here either. So what I need to do to get that attribute pulled in from that manufacturer's data card? Well, I need to go a little bit deeper here. I need to cancel out of here. I need to go back to my SQL query. I need to actually modify this and add this manually. Now, first off, I'm in a view-only mode, so I need to hit Edit. And you can do the editing right within Electrical. You don't have to do this in Notepad and import it. Now, each one of these is saying, let's pull from a table, and then within that table, let's go in and pull this particular field. Now, that sounds a little bit, daunting here. And don't worry, I'm not going to go in and start typing code in here. They actually make this a little easier than that. So on the right-hand side, it's giving us a list of the tables available in SOLIDWORKS. The ones that are in bold have already been referenced by our report. And if I expand one of these, inside of that table, here are all the different attributes I can pull, the different fields I can pull from. Once again, the ones in bold have already been added to our report, and these are what you are seeing available in that columns list, that pop-up white columns list. So I look in here, I see once again I probably have part number, manufacturer in here somewhere. But in here, I'm probably going to find a supplier, and there it is. You can see it's not bold. Neither is the stock number. That's because this report never referenced that field in the database. So how do I add it to my database of my report over here? Now, if I know SQL code, I can come in and type this in and modify it. I could copy one of the previous ones where I'm pulling in this particular field as a column to be used. But they make it pretty simple to do this. I don't want to do this at all. All I have to do is find the field in my right-hand side over here. Name a supplier. Double-click it. And if you watch right down here, right above this element count area, somewhere down here, this is going to pop up with the appropriate code without me having to type it. So let's find supplier name. And there it went. Put in supplier name. And right above below it, I add my stock number. I'm going to do the same thing. I double-click it. It has now added that column to be used. So before I exit out of here, I want to test it. Just click test, and it shows me a generic report of every field that has been pulled in this report, this query. At the very end, I should now see a supplier stock name shown. There it is. And I see that I actually do have some values on here that I may want to show in the report. So let's hit OK. Now that we've tested, we can lock this down. Let's come back out to our columns. But right-click. Still don't see that supplier here. That's because I never did that first step of adding the column to this window. So we have to come back and say, all right, now let's try adding this column to it. Let's give it a name of, let's give it a name of supplier, and see if I can find that variable this time. And of course I can. Here it is. There's the supplier name. It doesn't have a description, but that's what I just typed in that previous window. We will see this the next time it pops up. So I'm going to add this just by double-clicking it. Hit OK. OK one last time. I may want to say this a little bit wider column. And I'm going to do the same thing for my stock number. I'm just going to call this something different, supplier stock number. And I'll come and add that variable. It's in here somewhere. See, supplier name does now have a description. There's my stock number. Same thing, I'm just going to double click it. It shows up in the bottom. Okay, let's make this one a little bit wider, say 2. Now, since I've added 2 new columns here, I might want to come in and look at my layout. I can see that it is going off the page. So I'm going to shorten up on these other ones. Let's take our description down to about 6, see how that looks. Yeah, that fits all on the page. So let's see how this looks in our overall reports now. So I need to apply it, close it, and update, and then finally generate a drawing. And this time it shows, did I not update it? Oh yeah, I did. There it is. There's the supplier and there's the supplier part number. All right, I want to take this one step farther. Very last thing here. I want to organize this by the supplier. I don't want to see it by the manufacturer. I want to take this and say, all right, everything by DigiKey is shown in this table. So I'm going to do that kind of similar how I did my wire types earlier. Now that I've added this column, come back to my reports, look at its properties. So this time, since I'm going to organize it on the supplier, I don't want to show it also inside the table. So I'm going to right-click and say, let's uncheck the supplier. You see that these are now available in this column window. Let's turn off the supplier. And I might want to show that supplier part number right after the mark. So organize things a little bit. Oops. Mark, supplier part number, reference manufacturer. There we go. And then I'm going to change my sort and break to be on the supplier names. I need to get rid of these previous ones. And then say, let's look in here and find our supplier name. Apply that and add a break to it. So let's see how this looks for us. All right, and it looks like it worked. I am now sorting by my supplier name, seeing which marks are available and what their part numbers are with the appropriate quantities. So you can see that just because there's columns that you want to add and they're not shown, you do have the ability to go in using this SQL editor and start adding columns that weren't originally available. So to recap, we went over our report configurations. We showed how to add a column that was already available. Use some of those different parameters to sort and organize your results. How you can apply a formula to those results to get them to look the way you want them to. And finally, how you can add a column that was not previously available. So with that,